how one mistake led to an unforeseen adventure. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. By the time strangers were shouting my name across the Edmonds Ferry overflow lot, my phone was at 2%, my shoes were soaked through, and I was holding a stranger's black backpack like it might explode. "Nolan," a voice yelled from somewhere near the ticket booths. I spun so fast I almost slipped on the painted curb. Rain was blowing sideways, the kind that gets under your collar and makes your neck feel cold for hours. A ferry horn groaned out in the dark. Theo's tow truck idled behind me with one headlight out, and June was half out of the passenger window, waving both arms like I was the one causing traffic. "Don't stand there, move," Theo shouted. "If that gate drops, we miss the last loading slot." I ran. My knees were shaking from too much coffee and not enough food, and from the fact that 6 hours earlier I'd been sitting in a station in Seattle trying to get home after a normal shift. I'm a logistics assistant for a medical courier company. I build routes, track temperatures, double-check chain of custody scans, and spend most of my day preventing small mistakes from becoming expensive ones. I'm good at it because I'm careful. Obsessive, according to my ex. "You live like every minute is an audit," she said when she moved out in August. She wasn't wrong. So when I tell you this whole thing started with one stupid mistake, I mean one tiny, ordinary, humiliating mistake. I grabbed the wrong backpack off a station bench at 5:42 p.m., and by midnight I was helping two near strangers chase a missing man, a sealed metal box, and a surgery deadline on the wrong side of the water. The worst part wasn't even the rain or the fear. It was knowing my own bag, my apartment keys, work badge, charger, and the insulin I was supposed to drop off for my mom on the way home was in the hands of a guy named Eli, and I still didn't know if he was running from someone, from his mother, or from himself. Then the flip phone in the stolen backpack lit up with my name. My life before that night was quiet in the most aggressively structured way possible. I lived in a one-bedroom in North Seattle with labeled shelves, extra phone chargers in 3 rooms, and a whiteboard by the door that literally said, keys/badge/wallet/meds/phone. I packed lunches on Sundays. I left 10 minutes early for everything. I kept a spare transit card taped inside my desk drawer. At work, that made me useful. "Benson, you're the only one who notices when the timestamp is off by 40 seconds. My supervisor, Perez, told me that Tuesday morning. He meant it as a compliment, but he also used it to hand me 2 extra routes because Tanya called out and Darren quit. Again. So by 5:10 p.m. on Wednesday, October 17th, I was running on stale coffee, vending machine almonds, and about 4 hours of sleep. My mom had texted at lunch that she'd forgotten her evening insulin pen at my sister's place, and could I swing by with the spare after work? Perez had also pinged me at 4:56 asking me to just quickly review a chain of custody discrepancy before I left. There's a version of my day where I said no to at least one person. That version probably went home on time. Instead, I cleared the discrepancy, printed the revised route sheet, sprinted to King Street Station, and stood on track 4 with my messenger bag at my feet and my black backpack on the bench beside me. I remember all of it because I replayed it for days. The wet newspaper stuck to the platform, the overhead announcement cutting out mid-sentence, the guy in a navy jacket arguing on speakerphone 2 benches down. My ex texted while I was boarding. "First message in 3 weeks. Can you mail the rest of my books?" I looked down, answered, "Yeah, this weekend," grabbed the black backpack by the top handle, and stepped onto the train without checking the little orange thread I'd tied on mine. A small, stupid, tired person move. At 5:42, I grabbed the wrong black backpack and changed everything. I didn't realize it was the wrong bag until 22 minutes later, when the train hit Mukilteo, and I reached inside for my charger. No charger. No white cable knot I always kept in the front pocket. No work badge clipped to the mesh sleeve. Instead, my hand hit rolled cash, a metal key on a plastic tag stamped 214, and a cracked flip phone wrapped in a receipt. I sat there for a second with my brain refusing the information. Then I opened the bag fully and knew. Different lining. Different smell, motor oil, and damp wool instead of detergent. A folded ferry e-ticket. A motel receipt from Cedar Pines Inn, Edmonds, timestamp 4:18 p.m. A pharmacy bag with unopened anti-nausea tablets. A spiral notebook with 3 pages torn out. And taped to a white envelope, a yellow sticky note that said, June, if I bail again, make me go. Don't call Mara until I'm there. My stomach dropped. I checked the station seat around me like my bag might magically appear. It didn't. I checked overhead racks. Nothing. The guy across from me noticed my face and said, You okay? I took the wrong bag, I said. He winced. That's a bad night. The flip phone buzzed in my hand. Unknown number. I let it ring out, then buzz again immediately. Then a voicemail notification popped up. I opened it because panic beats manners. A woman's voice, older, sharp, trying not to sound scared. Eli, pick up. Surgery moved to 1:15. If you miss pre-op again, they won't keep delaying. You hear me? 1:15. The call log had 7 missed calls in 30 minutes, all from the same number labeled June Diner. I looked at the ferry ticket. Edmonds, Kingston, 7:10 p.m. 1 passenger. I looked at the motel receipt and the key tag and the envelope. My own bag was somewhere with this Eli guy, along with my keys, my mom's insulin pen, and tomorrow's work badge. I tried the number back. It rang once before a woman snapped. Eli, if this is another panic loop, I swear. This isn't Eli, I said. My name's Nolan. I think I have his backpack. Inside the bag was a ferry ticket, cash, and a handwritten deadline. There was a long silence on the line. Then she said, very carefully, What do you mean you have his backpack? I grabbed it by mistake at King Street. I'm on the train. I can meet somewhere and switch back. Can you get to Edmonds? She asked too fast. Now. I mean, eventually. I still need my own bag. So does he, she said. Listen to me, Nolan. I'm June. I own the Lantern Diner by the ferry terminal. Bring the bag here. Do not leave it with station security. That part set off every alarm in my body. Why not? I asked. Because I work in logistics. Trust me, is not a tracking number. Her voice dropped. Because if Eli sees a police car, he'll run. And if he runs tonight, he won't make it to his mother before surgery. I almost got off at the next stop anyway. Lost and found, transit police, report filed, normal people steps. But I couldn't call my mom because my phone battery was dying and my charger was in my missing bag, and I couldn't get into my apartment without my keys, and every practical problem in my life was now attached to this stranger named Eli. By 6:38 p.m., I was in the Lantern Diner, dripping on a rubber mat that smelled like bleach and fryer oil. June was behind the counter in a red cardigan and orthopedic sneakers, silver hair pinned up with a pencil. She took one look at the backpack in my hand and went pale. Where is he? She asked. I was hoping you'd tell me. Theo was sitting at the end stool in a work jacket with a grease-stained sleeve, eating pie straight from the tin. He looked me up and down like he was pricing a bad decision. That your city boy? He asked June. Apparently. She grabbed the flip phone, checked the screen, and muttered, No answer. Of course. Then she looked at me again. Did you open the envelope? No. Good. Don't. Theo stood, tossed cash on the counter, and said, You're too late for the 7:10. Next ferry's packed unless somebody gets lucky. June looked at the bag, then at me, and went pale. I should have walked out right there. I had no reason to trust a diner owner I'd just met, a tow driver built like a refrigerator, and a missing guy who left notes about bailing on something important. My whole body was screaming for a simple solution. Report the bag, call work, call mom from June's landline, salvage what I could. Then the flip phone buzzed again, and June hit speaker before I could object. A calm male voice said, This is pre-op at Jefferson County Medical Center for Elijah Vega. Mr. Vega, if you intend to sign updated consent paperwork for Mara Vega before anesthesia, you need to arrive no later than 12:45 a.m. Please confirm. Silence. Then the message ended. June leaned both hands on the counter. There. Now you know. Theo looked at me and shrugged. Not a scam, if that's what you're thinking. That proves there's a hospital, I said. It doesn't prove anything else. June nodded once, like she respected the pushback. Fair. So here's the rest. Eli's mother, Mara, is having emergency surgery tonight. He's supposed to bring a document and a box from a storage unit before he goes to the hospital. He panics when it's about family. He disappears. He always thinks he'll come back when he can breathe. She swallowed. Tonight there is no extra time. What document? Not mine to explain. Then why involve me? Because he has your bag, Theo said. And because you called back. June slid the motel receipt toward me and tapped the timestamp. Cedar Pines. He checked in, then checked out 20 minutes later. There's a storage key in that bag. Locker 214, Port Gamble Storage. He was supposed to stop there, then take the Kingston Road north. She looked straight at me. If he thinks he lost the backpack, he might spiral and hide. If we find him first, you get your bag back and maybe his son makes it to his mother. I hated that she made moral sense. I should have left, but the hospital voicemail changed the rules. Theo drove because my hands were shaking too much to manage directions, and because he knew every back road between Edmonds and Kingston since before your transit app was in diapers. His tow truck smelled like diesel, wet canvas, and peppermint gum. June rode in the middle seat with the backpack on her lap like a fragile animal. I sat by the window, watching rain sheet across strip malls and tire shops while we called Eli every 7 minutes. No answer. At Cedar Pines Inn, the clerk recognized the bag immediately. Yeah, skinny kid. Brown hoodie. Looked like he hadn't slept, she said, tapping the counter. Checked in around 4. Asked where he could print something. Came back soaked. Left before 6. Alone? Theo asked. She hesitated. Mostly. What does mostly mean? I said. He was arguing in the lot with a guy in a gray SUV. Not yelling. More like intense talking. Then the gray SUV left, and your guy took off on foot toward the transit stop. June went rigid. Did you get a plate? The clerk snorted. If I got plates for every weird conversation in this lot, I'd need a second job. I asked to use an outlet and charged my phone to 9%. I also borrowed the clerk's printer to pull up my Find Device history from my work account. My phone was dead, but my backpack had a tracker tile clipped inside for my keys. Last ping, 6:02 p.m. Edmonds Transit Center. He was still local then, I said. Theo rubbed his jaw. Where someone with your bag was. On the way back to the truck, June finally told me one thing she'd been holding. Eli doesn't drive anymore, she said quietly. Not since the accident. If he argued with someone in that lot and still left on foot, he was avoiding a ride. From who? I don't know. She looked out at the rain. And I don't like not knowing tonight. Theo started the engine and checked the clock. 8:11 p.m. The motel clerk mentioned the gray SUV, and Theo swore under his breath. The first real break came from paperwork, which felt almost insulting in the middle of all that chaos. We pulled into a gas station near the transit center because Theo needed fuel and June needed coffee strong enough to peel paint. While they were inside, I spread everything from Eli's backpack across the truck bench and started doing what I do at work. Sort, timestamp, sequence. Cedar Pines receipt for 18 p.m. Pharmacy bag, 5:01 p.m. Anti-nausea meds and motion sickness patches. Print shop stub from a UPS store in Linwood, 5:27 p.m. 8 pages B/W. ATM withdrawal slip, $240, 5:34 p.m. Edmonds Credit Union kiosk. Ferry e-ticket for 7:10 p.m. Flip phone call log, 7 missed calls from June, 2 from unknown, 1 voicemail from the hospital. And in the notebook, a list of place names with boxes next to them. Motel. Storage. Hospital. Don't freeze/don't open. Tell her whole truth. My chest tightened on that last line. Theo climbed back in and handed me a coffee. You look like you're building a murder board. Route board, I said. Different vibe. June peered at the slips. What's the print shop stub? I called the UPS store number from the flip phone. A bored kid answered and confirmed an Eli printed scanned forms and old photos. Then left a flash drive in the copier. They still had it. Can they hold it? June asked. They're closing in 10. Theo was already pulling out. Seatbelts. At the UPS store, the clerk gave me the flash drive in a tiny plastic bag and said, tell your friend to stop crying in public printers. It freaks people out. Back in the truck, I used my laptop. No, my laptop was in my missing bag. I cursed out loud. Theo reached behind the seat and produced a cheap Android tablet with a cracked corner. Use mine. It runs diagnostics. It can read USB. The first folder on the drive was labeled Mara Sur Docs. The second was Camila Videos. Every receipt pointed north, but Eli's voice note kept saying south. The voice note was time-stamped 6:11 p.m. and sounded like Eli was recording while walking fast in the rain. If I go straight to Kingston, I'll panic at the terminal. Go south first. Breathe. Then storage. Then hospital. Don't screw this up. Don't bail. Theo listened once and frowned. He's talking himself down. Or talking himself into disappearing, June said, but her voice was softer now. We made the UPS store by minutes, but the real turn happened at Port Gamble Storage. It sat behind a hardware store and a closed bait shop, chain-link fence rattling in the wind. The night manager had already locked up and refused to open the gate until June yelled through the intercom, "Mara Vega is in pre-op, and I will personally haunt you if that locker stays closed." He opened. Locker 214 wasn't full. It was almost empty, which somehow made it feel worse. A folding chair, a tarp, a fireproof document box, a small insulated medical pouch with 2 freezer packs, a manila envelope with Jefferson County Medical Center, admissions printed on the front, and a photo frame wrapped in a towel. "That's the don't freeze/don't open," June whispered, pointing to the insulated pouch. "Motion-sensitive meds." He picked them up because the hospital pharmacy in town was out. I stared at her. "So this whole thing was never about money," she said. "No." Theo set the box on the truck tailgate. "You said don't open." June looked at the hospital envelope, then at the clock. 10:26 p.m. We don't open sealed things. We verify. I checked the label on the pouch. Refrigerated specialty medication, patient, Mara Vega. I checked the admissions packet. Printed patient stickers. Consent cover sheet. Checklist initials at the bottom. EV. The fireproof box had a sticky note on top in block letters. "If I chicken out, give this to her anyway." The storage locker door rolled up, and my stomach dropped. We found Eli because Theo noticed what I missed. Muddy shoe prints behind the storage unit, fresh and narrow, heading toward the old Marina Road. "Kid was here," Theo said, crouching with his flashlight. "Recently." June called his name 3 times as we followed the beam through windblown grass and broken asphalt. No answer. Then a shape moved near a boarded fish shack, and Theo barked, "Eli, don't run, man. We have the meds." That did it. A thin guy in a brown hoodie stepped out with both hands up like we were cops. He looked younger than 24 and older than exhausted. His eyes went straight to the backpack in June's arms, then to me. "You," he said. "Train station." I held up both palms. "Wrong bag. I've been trying to find you for 5 hours." He pressed the heels of his hands into his face. "Oh my God. Your bag. Where is it?" "Bus locker at Edmonds." I panicked when I saw the note and thought you'd read everything and call transit police, and then June would call me, and then the hospital would call and... "Eli," June snapped. "Breathe later. Talk now." He looked at the ground. "I can't go." June's voice cracked. "You have to." "I know what I have to do," he shouted, then immediately winced at himself. He swallowed and looked at me instead, maybe because I was a stranger. "You want the truth? Fine. I'm not avoiding paperwork. I'm avoiding her face." The wind whipped his hood back. He looked 24 and terrified. "Camila was my sister," he said. 5 years ago I was driving. We spun on black ice. She died. My mom looked at me in the ER and said, 'You should have been the one in that seat.'" He laughed once, ugly and breathless. "I haven't made it through a hospital door since." June closed her eyes. "She called last week." Eli went on, voice shaking. "Cancer. Surgery tonight. Wants me there. Wants the meds, the forms, the box. Wants me to tell the whole truth, like I'm the one hiding everything." Eli finally admitted whose surgery clock we were really racing. I wish I could say that confession fixed everything, and we drove straight to the hospital like a movie. Instead, the ferry canceled. We made it back to the terminal at 11:07 p.m. With Eli in Theo's truck, the refrigerated meds in a cooler between my boots, the document box strapped in, and the admissions packet dry inside my jacket. The loading lanes were backed up with taillights and brake smoke, and a deckhand in a rain poncho was shouting over a bullhorn about wind advisories and suspended service. "No sail until conditions improve," he yelled. "Earliest update at midnight." Eli made a sound I still remember. Half laugh, half collapse. "That's it. That's the sign. We're done." Theo slapped the steering wheel. "No, we're detouring." June already had a paper map open on her lap, because apparently she was the only person alive who still trusted paper when cell signals died. "Tacoma Narrows, then up 16, then 3, then across," she said. "Long way, but moving." I checked the time against the hospital voicemail. "That adds at least 90 minutes. Closer to 2 in this weather," Theo said. Eli pulled at his hair. You should leave me. Give her the meds. Give her the box. Tell her traffic. June turned in her seat, so hard the springs squealed. No. I have delivered enough excuses between you two to fill a warehouse. He stared at the dashboard. You don't know what's in the box. Then tell us. No. The truck rolled forward a few yards, then stopped. My phone flashed 1% and died in my hand. For a second, in the dark cab with the rain hammering the roof, it felt like every system I trusted had failed at once. Transit, batteries, schedules, backups, plans. I looked at Eli, shaking, trapped in his own head, and saw the part of myself I hated most, the part that would rather miss a hard conversation than risk doing it badly. Theo, I said, take the detour. When the ferry lights vanished in the fog, I almost quit. The detour became a chain of practical problems, which finally felt like something I could fight. Theo drove. I handled route timing off June's map and the truck clock. June called the hospital from her flip phone every 20 minutes to beg for updates. Eli sat in silence until we hit a state patrol closure near Silverdale, and all four of us started talking at once. Road flood ahead. Local traffic only. A trooper shouted over the rain. Theo leaned out. Medical delivery for Jefferson County. Time sensitive. The trooper pointed at the cooler. Paperwork. I handed him the labeled pharmacy pouch and admissions packet through the window. He scanned the patient's sticker with his flashlight, hesitated, then waved us to the shoulder. Wait there. That's when Officer Collins pulled up in the gray SUV from the motel. My whole body tensed. Eli shrank into the seat. Collins stepped to the window, rain running off his hood. Mid-40s, tired eyes, county sheriff jacket. Not dramatic, not cruel. Just the kind of face that makes panicked people assume the worst. Which one of you is Elijah Vega? He asked. Eli whispered. I'm not going to jail, right now of all nights. Collins blinked. Jail? Kid, I've been trying to return your wallet. You left it at Cedar Pines, then bolted when I came out to the parking lot because your aunt called in a welfare check. Everyone in the truck went silent. June covered her face with one hand. I called because he wasn't answering, and I panicked. Collins looked at the cooler, the soaked paperwork, the four of us crammed in Theo's cab, and sighed. What exactly is happening? I answered before Eli could spiral again. I showed him the motel receipt, the call log, the pharmacy label, the time-stamped voice note list, and the hospital voicemail June replayed on speaker. I explained the wrong backpack, the storage locker, the canceled ferry, the detour. Logistics, sequence, evidence. No speeches. Collins listened without interrupting. Then he checked his watch and said, Follow me. I know a county road the closure doesn't block. Officer Collins read the timestamp twice, and his whole posture changed. We reached Jefferson County Medical Center at 12:43 a.m., 32 minutes after the last time June had begged the charge nurse for just a little longer. Collins walked us through the side entrance past a flickering vending machine and a waiting room full of bent heads and paper cups. The fluorescent lights made everything look too clean and too tired at the same time. My shirt was still damp. Theo's boots squeaked. Eli stopped dead at the lobby threshold like there was glass in the doorway. I can't, he said. June took the fireproof box from me and pressed it into his hands. Then stand here and open that. He stared at the latch. June. Now. His fingers shook so badly Theo had to steady one side while Eli popped the lock. Inside were old photos, a child's knitted bracelet, a stack of hospital bracelets held with a rubber band, and a digital recorder in a zip bag. On top sat a sealed letter addressed in shaky print. Eli, if you came, thank you. If you didn't, June, please make him listen. Eli made a strangled sound. June put the recorder in his palm. Play it. He pressed the button. Mara's voice came through thin and breathless, but unmistakably clear. Eli, if you're hearing this, I already said the wrong thing for 5 years and called it grief. The mechanic report came 2 days after Camila died. Brake line failure. Not you. I knew. And I still let you carry what I threw at you because I needed someone to punish and you stayed close enough to reach. I'm sorry. I am so sorry. If you're in this building, come in. If you're not, live anyway. Eli folded in half, both hands over his face. A nurse appeared at the desk and called, Elijah Vega? We need consent confirmation now. He looked up at me then, of all people, maybe because I had accidentally become the witness to his worst night. Will you walk with me? I nodded. In the hospital lobby, Eli told the truth he'd buried for years. I stayed because leaving felt impossible, and because once you spend 7 hours helping someone reach a hospital, you don't disappear at the desk. The next 20 minutes blurred into signatures, ID checks, and me handing over items like a human checklist. Refrigerated medication to the nurse, admissions packet to intake, wallet to Eli. Collins had it in a plastic evidence envelope, which was weirdly comforting. And finally my own black backpack, which Eli had stored in a transit locker and sent Theo the code for while he signed forms. Seeing that orange thread on the handle felt ridiculous and emotional at the same time. Sorry, Eli said for the 5th time, eyes red, voice raw. We're way past bag etiquette, I told him. June sat in a vinyl chair under a TV with captions on and cried, without hiding it. Theo brought her vending machine tea and pretended not to notice. Collins stood by the entrance finishing paperwork from his hood, then nodded at me once before he left, like we'd just completed some bizarre civilian operation together. At 2:06 a.m., the surgeon came out and said the procedure had started. At 3:14, my phone, finally charging from a wall outlet, lit up with missed calls and messages from Perez. Where are you? Nolan, this is unacceptable. We're missing chain logs from Route C. Call me ASAP. I called from the hallway and got exactly the reaction you'd expect. You chose a random stranger over your shift? Perez said. It wasn't random, I said, then heard how insane that sounded. He exhaled hard. Take tomorrow off. We'll discuss Monday. Which in supervisor language meant, be ready to defend your job. I sat on the floor by the vending machines after that, too tired to stand, and ate stale crackers Theo found in his glove box. Around 4 a.m., Eli came back from pre-op holding the knitted bracelet from the box. She asked me to keep this, he said, almost disbelieving. I saved the deadline, but my phone showed 17 missed calls from work. The story didn't end when the surgery did. Mara made it through the night. Complications, then stabilization, then a week in recovery. Eli didn't magically become okay. He had a panic attack in the imaging hallway 2 days later, and another one in the parking lot when someone dropped a metal tray. June still yelled at him like she loved him. Theo kept showing up with coffee and pretending he was already in the area, even when he clearly wasn't. And me? I went home at 7:30 a.m. Thursday, unlocked my apartment with my recovered keys, and stood in my kitchen staring at my whiteboard list like it belonged to someone else. I was still careful. I still liked plans. But I couldn't unsee what happened when plans broke and people stepped in anyway. Monday with Perez was rough. He said I was irresponsible. I said he was right about the missed logs. I also said I had documented everything, handed him the timestamps, and offered to make up the hours. Then I told him, not angrily, just clearly, that if he expected me to cover 2 jobs without backup every week, he needed to put it in writing or stop calling it just a quick favor. That was new for me. He stared at me for a long time and said, You want structure? Fine. We'll build structure. 2 weeks later, he approved an on-call rotation and finally cross-trained Darren's replacement. I started keeping the whiteboard, but I erased control from the system I'd built around myself. I added call someone instead. I also drove up to the Lantern Diner on a Sunday with a labeled cooler bag and a real phone charger for June's counter, because she still used that cracked flip phone like it was 2009. Theo laughed for a full minute when he saw the label maker in my hand. City boy, he said, grinning. You're getting weird. Back at my desk, one message waited that I never expected. It was from Eli. A photo first, Mara in a knit cap, pale but upright in a hospital chair, holding the ugly vending machine tea Theo kept bringing her. June was in the background pretending not to smile. Under it, Eli wrote, She asked if the train guy still alphabetizes his pantry. Also, thank you for not treating me like a problem to solve. I laughed so hard I had to put my phone down. That night, I stood at my sink rinsing rice, listening to rain hit the window, and thought about how hard I'd worked to make life mistake-proof. Color-coded lists, backup chargers, early arrivals, all useful things. But none of them ever taught me what to do after the mistake, which is the part that actually matters. Here's what I learned. First, fix the immediate risk, then assess the story. I didn't need to understand everyone's motives on minute 1. I needed to keep the meds cold, the papers dry, and the timeline moving. Second, evidence calms panic. Receipts, timestamps, labels, voicemails, Those little boring details got us farther than speeches did. Third, people are rarely one thing. Theo looked like trouble and drove like a maniac, but he was the steadiest person in the truck. June withheld details and manipulated all of us, but she was trying to hold a family together through fear. Eli looked evasive because he was ashamed, not because he was malicious. Even Officer Collins, who I instantly distrusted, turned out to be a tired deputy trying to return a wallet. I still tie an orange thread on my backpack handle. I still check the bench before I leave. But now, when something goes wrong, I don't treat it like proof that I failed. I treat it like a moment to choose who I am next.